I'm doing the Unit 4 concept speech over a brief history of schizophrenia. In my audience, I have my mom, Miss Laura, David, Miss Carrie, Teresa, and Rose. Alright, okay, now we're good. Okay. Schizophrenia and Shakespeare. What do the two have in common? Well, schizophrenia, as we now know, is an intricate mental disorder that affects a small amount of the world's population. Shakespeare, as most of us know, is a famous player in the 16th century. Lobotomies were a neurosurgical procedure done in the early to mid-1900s, and MRIs and other brain scans are currently a staple in the neurology field. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What does any of this have to do with each other? Well, there are some obvious connections between schizophrenia and lobotomies and brain scans, but Shakespeare? Really? Bear with me for this wild ride as we talk about a brief history of schizophrenia. I know what your first question is. What does Shakespeare have to do with schizophrenia? According to the National Library of Medicine, schizophrenia wasn't discovered until the late 19th century. And I'm here to tell you this. Schizophrenia has been around much longer than that. And proof being that Shakespeare wrote about it in his plays. Now, I know what you're thinking, how is that proof? But would Shakespeare know to add these characteristics in his plays if he didn't see them in people around him? Furthermore, would the audience have understood these qualities if they didn't see them in real life? So, to first start our exploration, we're going to be looking at the play King Lear. King Lear has a character called Edgar, sometimes he goes by Poor Tom in the play, and he's a very complex character. And according to the British Medical Journal, he had long-standing delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized speech and thought. His socioeconomic status had deteriorated, and he did not have a mood disorder, substance abuse, or dependence, or an adverse general medical condition. Thus meaning that Shakespeare wrote about schizophrenia, and at least the idea of schizophrenia was around in the 16th century. Let's move in even further, looking at one of his most famous plays, Macbeth. Macbeth's main character, obviously named Macbeth, had long-standing visual and auditory hallucinations as well as delusions throughout the entire play. It is to be believed that Macbeth is a paranoid schizophrenic. Now, let's apply this to real life. How does this make sense in these terms? Would we not understand the things that go on in TV shows, books, and movies if we didn't have the knowledge we have today? For example, if a TV show character has depression, do we not understand why they act the way they do because we see these qualities in our own lives? Furthermore, would we understand the drama that goes on television if we didn't see it as a real-life occurrence? Now, Emil Kraepelin was a German psychiatrist who discovered schizophrenia in 1887. Now, schizophrenia had been around, the talk of schizophrenia had, and there were different names for it, one of which being adolescent insanity, which was the Italian term for it. Now, Emil Kraepelin focused his research on common symptoms shown throughout the world. And instead of coining the term himself, he left his research to the medical community, and knowing that other research and newer technologies would come across the same findings that he had. So let's jump a bit, one crazy idea to the next. Lobotomies are a neurosurgical procedure that, as I previously stated, were done in the early to mid-1900s. Well, this procedure goes by severing the connections in the prefrontal cortex from the rest of the brain. They did this in hopes to cure schizophrenia and other mental disorders. And how it did, however, cure it, but it also left the patients practically brain dead. Think of it like this. What would you do if you didn't have a personality? What would you do if you didn't have a voice to understand what you were thinking? So the last procedure was done in 1967, and instead, antipsychotic medications were coming around this time. And at this time, people were radically preferring more medications over procedures. So let's look at schizophrenia today. MRIs and other brain scans are a staple in the neurology field. They are much safer to use, and they are used to diagnose and possibly not treat, but find a treatment for different mental disorders. Now, there is a small amount of research that has been done on schizophrenia using brain scans as their main basis. And those findings are as follows. Schizophrenia is passed down by genetics. Yep, that's about it. That's all we know about schizophrenia. Believe it or not, typical age. The current global epidemic will lead to a plethora of new research and possibly cures to different mental disorders. This concept of mental disorders and diseases have taken the people of today's age by fascination. There is a history of mental health shows that the same can be said for research. I would like you all to take this information and use it to fight for other research and for all mental disorders. I would like to thank you all for coming.